Now, we've got some Kickstarters to bring you some really exciting ones that I want to talk about. The first one, I want to know, what is the best way for me to defend Neo Tokyo? Please tell me.
All right. So the best way for you?
Yeah.
Just crawl in a ball and cry. There's nothing you can do.
Okay.
But for everyone else in this game, as you haven't guessed, you're sort of defending a city. And since it's Tokyo, you can probably guess it's from giant monsters.
Okay. Is it a new Tokyo? It's Neo.
It's weird alternate universe stuff.
All right. Continue.
But to do that, you're going to be building a giant robot. And the board, your robot is 4 parts. There's like the upper torso and head, 2 arms, and legs. So you can do some weird customization and stuff. It is cooperative. You're working together. The Neo Tokyo is broken up into many different city districts where the monsters are going to be rampaging. And you got to prevent them from either causing too much chaos by either killing civilians, destroying other robots, or just destroying more sectors, and then you lose. Kill enough of them, and then the boss appears. So to me, I'm always a sucker for kaiju themes. Mm-hmm. But what I really enjoyed was just the idea of mixing the robots. Me like, all right, this arm with this arm might be cool with this stats and stuff.
Are they cardboard pieces?
They were cardboard that, well, at least in the video, the cardboard that clicked together. Okay. Not really clicked, but I mean,
they fit together.
Yeah.
Are there actually kaiju or just robots?
The good guys are the robots. The bad guys are the kaiju.
Okay.
And they're controlled by the game. There's no kaiju player.
Do you think that they are trying to ride on the King of Tokyo wave by kind of sounding like them and being about fighting giant monsters?
I was thinking more Pacific Rim.
Well, definitely does sound more like Pacific Rim than a Godzilla because of the robots. And I like that it's cooperative.
I think more of the Neo Tokyo thing is just the nod that really...
It's been around for a while.
And Japan's also, when you think kaiju and giant monsters, you're going to Godzilla in Japan.
Yeah. Well, this one looks cool. It goes for $59. So you want to defend Neo Tokyo, that's how much it will cost you. Let's stay on this monster theme because there was another one that I liked called Monster Lands. Did you see this one?
I did.
Okay. See, I thought maybe you would like it because it reminded me a little bit of the game.
It's not just kaiju, just monster or dinosaur. Here, Will. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, easy to please. So it reminded me of the video game Monster Hunter in some ways. Basically, you start out with a couple of clan members, and they come with their sets of dice, and it's a worker placement game, and you use dice as your worker placement pieces. And then once you've chosen what you're doing, you can get new power-ups, and weapons, stuff like that, new members of your team. Then you take your dice back and you use them to roll to attack monsters. You can also choose to capture the monsters, and depending on what monster it is and how you do it, you may get different rewards. And as you go, you're going to be getting more people, which brings you more dice, so you're managing the dice. So basically it's a worker placement game, but it has a cool art style with some really cool monster designs.
Yeah, I definitely, the dice management, I feel, I don't know why, maybe it's just because I'm noticing it more, or if it's actually a trend.
I think it's a little bit of a trend. I think it's definitely...
So it's not just me just having to seeing them,
no, I definitely think that's coming into the spotlight a little bit more these days. And it's fun. I'm
not saying it's bad, it's curious whether... But yeah, no, look, I like the idea, it's cool because the example they showed was like they rolled the dice and they reached the capture level, and there's also a kill level. But a lot of this is manipulating the dice as what I would want in a good dice. I think a good dice management game has to have a lot of good dice manipulation. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just random rolling. Right. Yes. It's much more about getting the stuff, the power-ups beforehand than just hoping for a good roll. Yeah. If you're playing it right, I guess. And unlike the Monster Hunter video game, it's not always better to capture them. I think like sometimes you want to kill them to get more stuff. Seemed like because there's so many different monsters, I don't know my my item drop ratios because sometimes I think certain things do drop more likely killing. But this isn't nearly as hectic as that. There aren't each monster has 200 pieces. There's not a 1% drop for a goddamn Rathian plate. Yes, this will be a little more forgiving in terms of your resources. That's absolutely true. And this one goes for $64, I want to say. Yeah, $64. And that is available on Kickstarter right now. It is not related to any kind of X-Men dice game. And I don't know why anyone would ask that question or think about it. But it's just something I thought I'd say off the top of my head. And we got one more Kickstarter pick.
that we both liked the look of called Overbooked, and this one comes from Singapore.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Oh, something just fell, but don't worry about it.
Yes, so in this game, you are each different airline companies, which I don't know if you looked at them, they're all very funny. Like one was British Airlines instead of British Airlines.
All right, I love it.
Fun little puns there. And if you haven't guessed, you're all about trying to board your plane efficiently. Now, to do this, you're all going to be drafting. I guess still when there's cards lined up and you choose one.
Yeah, I guess.
Is that still drafting?
Well, the way that I saw it was sort of like Suburbia.
Yeah, that like it's not exactly the passing cards, but you choose one, and of course, each card allows you to put different passengers in your certain positions. It's not just one red and one blue token. It's literally one here, two over here or something.
Right, so you have, with your own board, you're managing it very puzzle-like, sort of like a patchwork type of thing if you've played Patchwork, where you have to figure out where do these fit on my board, because if you overlap a passenger you already have, they go to the overbooked section and that loses you points. And then the other thing is you get combos for like, oh, these two are a couple, so if they're together, that's more points.
Right, so color does matter too. It's just really fun, and you can rotate the cards any way you see fit. And you can pass over some, but then you use vouchers, but then other people can claim them. It looked like this really fun way of just trying to fit a better plane than your opponents.
Yeah, and I already mentioned Suburbia, but I think it looks like it has a very similar feel where everybody has their own individual space that you're working with only, and people can't like mess with it. But you're still kind of interacting in which cards you take and worrying about other people's scores. And at the end of the game, you have a fun little plane you can look at
and see how many people you pissed off.
Yeah, you get to
or possibly dragged out bloodied.
You get to play United. Yeah, so that one goes for only $26. But you may need to do some translation from Singapore money if you're buying it. So keep that in mind.
Kickstarter does do that pretty well.
They do. Also, one other random thing I wanted to talk about is we talked about the game Detective last week. We don't have a slide or anything for this, but they made a decision that I thought was interesting, worth discussing, that they are only going to be selling this game through Kickstarter and their website. They're not going to be doing it through retail because it's such a big, expensive game that a lot of retailers would be hesitant to buy it because they don't get as much of a profit margin, and it's just such a big ordeal.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. I think one of the big issues, at least coming from the retailer side, is a lot of now when you hear about Kickstarter games, you almost don't want to have them in your store because you already know that people backed it.
It could be, but I mean that's their reasoning that they gave.
But I mean, like when you look, if you had to make a choice of putting that in your store, or maybe the new Star Wars Armada, which you know doesn't have, you're probably going to lean towards that.
Right. Well, it's interesting. They're not the first company to do this. Cool Mini or Not also did the same thing with the Game of Thrones miniatures game recently, which you'd think would be a huge seller, but again, because it was such an expensive thing. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Potentially, companies just forgoing retail altogether.
Well, my guess is if it sells well enough consistently or something, or enough game retailers, then they would.
So, in the future, we might see a lot more of these Kickstarters heading that way, especially the bigger ones. But it'll be interesting. Interesting.
I mean, Kickstarter is definitely one of the big things that are shaping the landscape for board games. It's very curious to see how things
It's getting shaped. It's getting land-shaped.
If you enjoyed this video, it was just a snippet of our full-length podcast, which you can find on our YouTube channel every week. So please go ahead, like, and subscribe for more board game-related content coming at you in the future.
And don't forget to check out rollforcrit.com, where we actually sell a lot of the games we talked about, as well as post news and all our other videos. Until then, I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this is Roll for Crit.